Cur, from the Latin verb curare, means basically care for. Our verb cure comes from this root, as do manicure, care of the hands, and pedicure, care of the feet. Curative having to do with curing diseases. As soon as the antibiotic entered his system, he imagined he could begin to feel its curative effects. Medical researchers are finding curative substances in places that surprise them. Folklore has led to some new cures of old diseases, and natural substances never before tried have often proved effective. Quinine, which comes from a tree in the Andes, was the original drug for malaria. Aspirin's main ingredient came from willow bark, and Taxol, a drug used in treating several cancers, was originally extracted from the bark of a yew tree. The curative properties of these natural drugs are today duplicated in the laboratory. Curator, someone in charge of something where things are on exhibit, such as a collection, a museum, or a zoo. In recent decades, zoo curators have tried to make the animals' surroundings more and more like their natural homes. In a good-sized art museum, each curator is generally responsible for a single department or collection: European painting, Asian sculpture, Native American art, and so on. Curatorial duties include acquiring new artworks, caring for and repairing objects already owned, discovering frauds and counterfeits, lending artworks to other museums, and mounting exhibitions of everything from Greek sculpture to 20th century clothing. Procure, to get possession of, obtain. Investigators were looking into the question of how the governor had procured such a huge loan at such a favorable rate. While procure has the general meaning of obtain, it usually implies that some effort is required. It may also suggest getting something through a formal set of procedures. In many business offices, a particular person is responsible for procuring supplies, and government agencies have formal procurement policies. When teenagers use an older friend to procure the wrong kind of supplies for their parties, they often risk getting into trouble. Sinecure, a job or position requiring little work but usually providing some income. The job of dean of students at any college is no sinecure. The hours can be long and the work draining. Sinecure contains the Latin word sine, without, and thus means without care. In some countries, the government in power may be free to award sinecure positions to their valued supporters. In other countries, this would be regarded as corruption. The positions occupied by British royalty are called sinecures by some people, who claim they enjoy their enormous wealth in return for nothing at all. But their many supporters point to the amount of public service, charitable, and ceremonial work they perform, not to mention the effort they put into promoting Britain to the world. Peri, in both Latin and Greek, means around. A period is often a span of time that keeps coming around regularly, day after day or year after year. With a periscope, you can see around corners. Peristalsis is the process that moves food around the intestines. Without it, digestion would grind to a halt. Perimeter, the boundary or distance around a body or figure. In a medieval siege, an army would surround the perimeter of a city's high walls, denying the population any food from outside as it assaulted the walls with catapults and battering rams. The perimeter of a prison is ringed with high walls and watchtowers, and the entire perimeter of Australia is bounded by water. In geometry, you may be asked to calculate the perimeter of various geometrical shapes. In basketball, the perimeter is the area beyond the free throw circle. A perimeter player tends to stay outside that circle. Try not to confuse this word with parameter, which usually means a rule or limit that controls what something is or how it can be done. Periodontal, concerning or affecting the tissues around the teeth. Years of bad living had filled his teeth with cavities, but it was periodontal disease that finished them off. In dentistry, cavities are important, but they aren't the whole story. What happens to your gums is every bit as vital to your dental health. When you don't floss regularly to keep plaque from forming on your teeth and gums, the gums will slowly deteriorate. Dentists called periodontists specialize in the treatment of periodontal problems, and when the gums have broken down to the point where they can't hold the teeth in place, a periodontist may need to provide dental implants, a costly and unpleasant process. But even a periodontist can't keep your gums healthy. That job is up to you. Peripatetic 1. Having to do with walking. 2. Moving or traveling from place to place. She spent her early adult years as a peripatetic musician, traveling from one engagement to another. The philosopher Aristotle had his school at the Lyceum Gymnasium in Athens. The Lyceum may have resembled the Parthenon in being surrounded by a row of columns, or colonnade, which the Greeks would have called a peripatoi. Aristotle was also said to have paced slowly while teaching, and the Greek word for pacing was peripatos. And finally, peripatos meant simply discussion. Whatever the source of the word, Aristotle and his followers became known as the peripatetics, and the pacing sense led to peripatetics English meaning of traveling or moving about. Johnny Appleseed is a good example of a peripatetic soul, and peripatetic executives and salespeople today stare into their laptop computers while endlessly flying from city to city.